bring into a discussion like that, and would love to hear more of your war stories and experience.
Well, sure, I'd be happy to do that, Alan.
All right. Well, Keith, I'm going to have to move on here and wrap the show up. Um, Coming down to our soft finish, one of the nice things about our new platform is we don't have hard limits like we had previously that couldn't really be extended. So Keith, I know we can find you on Twitter at Keith_Martin2, and you also have one of the greatest names for a blog out there. Why don't you share that with everybody?
Well, my blog site, you mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's Rednecks, Crackers, and Beer is the name of the site, and you can find it at, and it's a long name. I probably need to find some other way to shorten this, but it's Rednecks, Crackers, Beer at blogspot.com.
Yep, and it's actually longer than their finest hour, so you get the champion there. Although I have seen longer ones, so.
Ed Farsi keeps screaming at me to fix that and do something with that name.
To heck with Ed and his open source production values. Keep it the way it is. I mean, he only runs hot air. What does he know about blogging?
we did the whole show today without any open source problems.
Oh, that's good. Was Ed back today? Because I was busy this afternoon.
I saw a couple tweets from him. He's home. He's good. He took an extra day off. He says because he needs to recover. He had a 23-hour. Took him 23 hours to get from Istanbul back to Minneapolis yesterday, and I think he was pretty whooped and just needed a day to, probably recover. And they probably had a ton of laundry to do, and God knows what. I'm not sure exactly where he'd been. I know Dwayne had said that they were about a week and a half ago. Dwayne said they were in Israel, so they obviously went to Turkey at some point, but who knows where else. I was joking that he was, assigned to go by the CIA to go to Moscow and properly dispatch Edward Snowden.
All right, Keith. Well, you have a good rest of your evening, and we will speak to you again sometime soon.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show tonight, Alan. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Good night. And my other guest earlier this evening was Leah Sargent of Misfit Politics. You can find her also on Twitter, although I expect you probably are already at GOP Firecracker. Definite must follow. Just to give a little bit of a preview of some stuff I have coming up this week at their finest hour at blogspot.com. Starting on Wednesday, November 20th, is the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Tarawa, when the United States Marines landed on Tarawa Atoll and Betito Island in the Pacific. Very bloody battle, one of the bloodiest fought in terms of the size of the force and the casualties they suffered. Several Medal of Honor winners as that, and you'll be able to read their stories coming up at their finest hour. Tomorrow, there is a World War II Medal of Honor winner, but also I'm going to have a brief post up about the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address, which took place on November 19th, 1863, excuse me, at the dedication of the Gettysburg National Cemetery. Of course, the big event, if you were there in November of 1863, was to hear a long oration. The name of the person who delivered his name and his oration itself is pretty much lost to time, because what everybody does remember is perhaps the greatest presidential speech ever given, which is Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Really it's 3 paragraphs, and I don't remember the exact word count, but all reports said it took President Lincoln about 3 or 4 minutes to deliver it. And I believe, and if somebody in the chat or if my producer wants to correct me, but I believe as of my last check, President Obama was invited to attend the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address, but has chosen not to. Which personally I find absolutely deplorable given the historical significance of Gettysburg and the Gettysburg Address. And for somebody who likes so much of his own to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln, that simply the fact that he will not go, I think, is testament to he knows he is not. But in closing tonight, I am going to just read the Gettysburg Address because it really does speak for itself. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us here to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And with that, America and the internet and the world, I say goodnight, and we will be here next Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Vigilant Liberty Radio with another broadcast. Thank you all for listening, and good night. This show is copyright by VLR Media. All opinions of panelists and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media, the host, or much of anyone else.
You ask, what is our aim? Victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be. For without victory there is no survival. Come, then, let us go forward together with our united strength. This was their finest hour.